workers were just digging this tunnel. Things are so crazy. Like, you read about something like that, like every day it's something weird.
Germany is quietly digging tons of sand, and it's a lot more than just beach restoration. The country is extracting sand from the sea at an alarming scale, with major consequences that few are talking about. This sand is being used in massive construction projects like the Fehmarn Belt Tunnel, which links Germany to Denmark. In the south of Denmark, a mega project is underway to build a tunnel under the Baltic Sea linking the country to Germany. It's currently Europe's biggest construction site and the world's longest prefabricated road and rail tunnel. Additionally, Germany is using sand to combat severe coastal erosion. But what's really happening under the surface, and why does this matter? Join us as we explore how Germany is quietly digging tons of sand and how it changes everything. Germany has been quietly removing huge amounts of sand from the sea, especially around the Baltic coast. Most people haven't noticed, but the scale of this operation is massive. One big reason behind it is a huge construction project, the Fehmarn Belt Tunnel. This tunnel will link Germany and Denmark through the Baltic Sea, stretching about 18 kilometers long. When it's finished, it'll become one of the longest underwater tunnels in the world. In the south of Denmark, this mega project is underway to build a tunnel under the Baltic Sea linking the country to Germany. It's currently Europe's biggest construction site and the world's longest prefabricated road and rail tunnel. It's a big deal for trade and travel, and building it requires tons of concrete. To make that concrete, they need sand, a lot of it, and not just any kind of sand, but the kind that holds up under the sea and doesn't wash away easily. What effect does this have on sea life? Is it only Germany that's doing this extraction? Stay tuned. What you're about to hear will blow your mind. To lay down the tunnel pieces, the seabed has to be carefully prepared. That means dredging, digging out sand and other sediments to level the area and make sure the huge tunnel segments fit perfectly. All that sand goes somewhere, and much of it is repurposed. But the process keeps repeating because the tunnel needs stable ground and steady materials to hold everything in place. It's not just about digging a hole and dropping in concrete, it's about reshaping the seafloor in a way that stays put for decades. But that's not the only reason Germany is collecting sand from the sea. Along its coastline, especially around the North Sea, the country is dealing with serious erosion. The island of Sylt, for example, has been steadily disappearing. Winter storms are rough, and they eat away at the land. To fight back, Germany has been doing something called beach nourishment. This means they take sand from the sea and spray it back onto the beaches. It helps rebuild what the waves take away. On Sylt alone, this happens almost every year, and they bring in millions of cubic meters of sand to keep the beaches from vanishing completely. Without this, some parts of the coast might already be underwater. The environmental effects are hard to ignore. When sand is dredged from the seafloor, it leaves behind big craters, some as deep as 20 meters and wide enough to stretch across a small town. These pits disrupt the seabed and destroy habitats for sea creatures that live down there. It's like bulldozing a forest, only underwater. Some animals come back, but it takes years. Others don't return at all. The shape of the seafloor changes, and with it, the life that depends on it. Certain parts of the sea are more delicate than others. Sandbanks, for instance, are naturally formed underwater ridges made of sand. They are home to fish, shellfish, and other marine animals. Birds feed there too, but once you start digging into them, they don't bounce back easily. Removing sand from these spots can mess up the food chain. Germany, along with other countries around the Baltic, has been warned about this. Groups like Helcom have released reports showing how dangerous large-scale sand extraction can be if it's not kept in check. Still, the need for sand keeps growing. It's not just about tunnels and beaches. Sand is used in almost everything: roads, buildings, glass, and even in making computer chips. Germany's construction industry depends on it, and demand hasn't slowed down much even during the pandemic. The push for better housing, greener buildings, and new infrastructure means more sand is needed every year. Some German companies are trying to change that. One example is a company that's now washing and reusing old construction materials to create recycled sand. They dig up waste from old buildings, clean it, sort it, and turn it back into usable sand and gravel. It's a clever way to reuse what's already there instead of digging up more from the sea. But while that helps, it's nowhere near enough to meet the full demand. Natural sand is still the main source because it's cheap, abundant for now, and already part of the supply chain. There's also a wider problem. When Germany dredges sand from the sea, it doesn't just affect German waters. The Baltic Sea is shared with other countries, and what happens in one area can ripple out to others. Currents move the sand and silt around. Fish migrate across borders. Pollution doesn't stop at the edge of a country's maritime zone. This means that even if one country is careful, another might not be. That's why HELCOM and similar organizations are pushing for better coordination. But right now, it's mostly left to national governments to decide how much sand can be taken and where. What's strange is how little public attention this gets. We hear a lot about oil, gas, and lithium resources countries fight over, but sand is used more than any of them, second only to water in terms of global consumption. Yet there's almost no spotlight on it. No big news stories, no debates. And that's allowed extraction to continue quietly without much pushback or serious rules in place. It's only recently that people are starting to notice, and even then, it's mostly environmental groups raising the alarm. As Germany keeps scooping sand from the seabed and pouring it into its projects, other countries are watching and copying. What began as local efforts to protect coastlines and build tunnels is now turning into something much bigger. But this is not the first time Germany is extracting sand on such a large scale. It's been going on for a while now. Let's take a look. Germany's industrial uses of sand go beyond the coastline. The country's demand for sand reaches far beyond beach nourishment and undersea tunnel construction. Across decades, Germany has utilized sand as a silent yet essential component in nearly every sector of its industrial development. While most discussions focus on sand's role in building the scale and continuity of sand usage in these areas are rarely discussed in public forums, heavy manufacturing, but they form the backbone of the German construction, and even emerging green technologies. In what way does this happen? Stay tuned to find out. One of the oldest and most sand-intensive industries in Germany is the foundry sector. Foundries use sand to create molds for casting metal components. Germany is one of Europe's largest producers of cast components, serving global automotive, aerospace, and machinery markets. Silica sand, valued for its heat resistance and fine-grained structure, is essential for this process. According to the Federal Association of the German Foundry Industry, BDG, foundries in Germany consume millions of tons of sand annually. At the Simpelkamp Gießerei in Krefeld, which manufactures large-scale industrial castings, nearly 1,000 tons of sand are used daily, most of it recycled through complex regeneration systems that clean and reuse the sand after casting. Though recycling helps, a significant share of new sand is still required, as even the best systems degrade sand quality over repeated use. The glass manufacturing sector is another major consumer of sand, particularly high-purity quartz sand. In Germany, sand is not just used to make common glass bottles and windows, but also highly specialized products such as optical glass, laboratory equipment, and fiber optics. These require specific grades of silica with extremely low impurity levels. Deposits in Bavaria and Lower Saxony provide some of the cleanest silica sands in Europe, supporting the operations of companies like Schott and Heraeus, which export high-tech glass products worldwide. Glass making not only requires sand but also large energy inputs, making the supply and quality of silica a tightly controlled industrial priority. The sector cannot easily substitute or recycle its sand inputs, unlike in construction, making it a fixed dependency. Construction remains by far the largest overall user of sand in Germany. In 2018 alone, Germany extracted over 485 million tons of construction aggregates, which include sand, gravel, and crushed stone. A significant proportion of this comes from riverbeds, land-based quarries, and to a lesser extent, marine sources. The extracted sand feeds the production of concrete, mortar, and asphalt, all of which are used to build roads, railways, bridges, homes, and factories. Even Germany's famous autobahns, known for their durability, depend on a base layer composed of specially graded sand. Urban redevelopment and new housing projects in Berlin, Hamburg, and Munich have further driven up demand for sand, particularly since Germany's population has remained stable or grown due to immigration and economic factors. The renewable energy transition, known in Germany as Energiewende, has also led to new uses of sand. While this may not be obvious at first glance, sand is used in the production of solar panels, which contain layers of high-purity silicon derived from quartz sand. Germany was once one of the largest producers of solar panels in Europe before much of that production shifted to Asia. However, the country still houses several facilities that require silica inputs to support the domestic supply chain and research and development in solar technology. Wind turbines also rely on sand indirectly. The concrete foundations of wind towers contain large volumes of sand to stabilize their structures, especially in offshore environments where wind farms are expanding in the North Sea. Another emerging area of sand use is in the production of engineered materials and high-performance ceramics. These materials are used in aerospace, defense, and electronic applications. Fused silica derived from pure quartz sand is essential in making components that must withstand high thermal and mechanical stress. German industries such as Bosch and Siemens rely on these materials in manufacturing sensors, semiconductors, and turbine components. With the global demand for precision engineering growing, Germany's dependence on processed forms of sand has quietly expanded into the field of advanced materials. The mining and processing of sand has also fed into Germany's cement industry, which produces over 30 million tons of cement annually. Cement requires fine aggregates, primarily sand, to achieve the right composition. Even small variations in sand grain size or mineral content can alter the strength and durability of the final product, making consistent sourcing a logistical concern. Companies like Heidelberg Materials operate integrated facilities where sand, limestone, and other raw materials are blended on-site before processing, creating highly specialized formulations for different construction needs. Industrial-scale brickmaking is another domain where sand plays an irreplaceable role. Sand is used in the mixture of clay and other materials that form fired bricks and blocks. Germany produces around 10 billion bricks annually for both domestic use and export. These include traditional red bricks, silicate bricks, and lightweight aerated blocks, each requiring specific ratios of sand to achieve proper insulation, compressive strength, and weather resistance. Plants located in Saxony-Anhalt and North Rhine-Westphalia consume thousands of tons of sand per year, often sourced from nearby rivers or glacial deposits. While sand mining has traditionally relied on terrestrial and fluvial sources, the steady depletion of accessible deposits has led Germany to explore more technologically advanced extraction and recycling methods. One of the most promising approaches involves the processing of construction and demolition waste. Research by the Federal Institute for Materials Research and Testing shows that fine sand particles can be reclaimed from crushed concrete rubble and reused in non-load-bearing applications. Although this practice is not yet universal, it is growing due to increased regulation of raw material use and landfill restrictions. Experimental projects have even explored using recycled glass particles as a sand substitute in certain construction mixes, with promising results in reducing the demand for natural aggregates. These products are vital to Germany's metal processing and waste treatment sectors. Stuttgart, pilot programs have tested composition of sand in everything from pavement must be tightly controlled, often requiring imported sand from countries like such Norway materials or cannot yet fully replace high-grade natural sand. They offer a partial solution to Germany's filtration consumption, a lesser-known but significant use of sand comes into focus, which produce materials resistant to municipal water plants also depend on sand-based treatment facilities rely on sand as an essential filtration medium. Used in manufacturing layers of coarse and fine sand are used to remove impurities in water filtration systems. This application requires chemically inert sand that won't leach harmful minerals into the water. Special grades of filtration sand are produced under strict quality controls and are periodically replaced to maintain system performance. In all, sand plays a logistical role in winter maintenance and rail safety during icy conditions. Railway operators such as Deutsche Bahn deploy sand to improve traction between train wheels and rails. Spreaders mounted on locomotives release small amounts of sand to prevent wheel slippage during acceleration or braking. Municipalities also use sand in combination with salt to improve road safety during snowfalls, especially in hilly regions like Bavaria and the Black Forest. While the quantities used are smaller compared to industrial sectors, this application is vital for public safety and infrastructure maintenance. Germany's use of sand extends far beyond its beaches and seabed. It's not only Germany that uses sand in this way. Let's look at the global trend of sand use across other countries. The global demand for sand has surged dramatically in recent years, driven by rapid urbanization, infrastructure development, and land reclamation projects, as seen in Germany where sand extraction has become a major concern. This insatiable appetite for sand is not unique to one country. Across the world, nations have been extracting massive amounts of sand, often with little regard for the environmental or social consequences. In China, the country's construction boom has made it the largest consumer of sand globally. Poyang Lake, China's largest freshwater lake, has become a focal point for sand mining, with an estimated 236 million cubic meters of sand extracted annually. This massive dredging operation has caused significant disruptions to local ecosystems, leading to habitat loss for migratory birds and aquatic species. Furthermore, the depletion of sand from riverbeds has resulted in increased flooding and erosion in surrounding areas, a worrying trend that is affecting both the environment and local communities. But China and Germany are not the only countries caught in this web. Which other countries are involved? Stick around, the most interesting part still lies ahead. India, as a country, has faced challenges with illegal sand mining in Tamil Nadu. Unauthorized extraction from riverbeds has led to a dramatic drop in groundwater levels, affecting agriculture and drinking water supplies. The lucrative nature of sand mining has fostered the rise of sand mafias, criminal networks that engage in violent activities to protect their interests. Numerous reports have surfaced detailing the violent tactics used to maintain control over sand extraction operations, including threats, assaults, and even murders linked to disputes over mining rights. Meanwhile, the Middle East, particularly the United Arab Emirates, UAE, has contributed to the global demand for sand despite being surrounded by vast deserts. The desert sand, however, is unsuitable for construction, prompting countries like the UAE to import sand for their ambitious building projects, including artificial islands and towering skyscrapers. The demand for sand has thus become a global issue, with regions like the UAE relying on imports to fuel their construction boom. This trade, however, has environmental implications, as the sand extracted from other countries often leads to irreversible damage to ecosystems and habitats. Singapore stands out as the world's largest importer of sand, primarily for land reclamation efforts to expand its territory. Between 1990 and 2017, the city-state's land area grew by 24%, largely due to the importation of sand from neighboring countries. However, this growth came at a significant environmental cost. Countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, and Cambodia, which were the main suppliers of sand to Singapore, have suffered from severe environmental degradation due to excessive sand extraction. The mining has caused the destruction of coastal ecosystems and increased the frequency of flooding. In response, some countries have imposed export bans on sand. These restrictions, however, have led to illegal sand smuggling operations, further complicating the situation. In Southeast Asia, the Mekong River has become a hotspot for sand extraction, with countries like Vietnam and Cambodia extracting millions of tons of sand annually. This excessive mining has resulted in riverbank collapses, increased salinity intrusion, and significant threats to the fisheries that support millions of people in the region. The ecological damage caused by sand dredging in the Mekong Delta poses serious risks to food security and the livelihoods of those who depend on the river's resources. The situation in the Mekong highlights the broader challenges faced by countries where sand extraction has disrupted entire ecosystems. Africa is also facing its own issues with sand mining. In West Africa, countries like Gambia have experienced illegal sand mining that degrades coastal ecosystems and exacerbates erosion. The environmental damage caused by such activities is compounded by a lack of regulation and enforcement, leading to widespread exploitation of sand resources. Recently, Interpol has launched crackdowns on illicit sand mining operations in the region, underscoring the growing concern over environmental crimes linked to sand extraction. The global sand trade is also complicated by a lack of standardized regulations and oversight. Discrepancies in export and import data, particularly in places like Singapore, point to widespread illegal activities and underreporting. The absence of international conventions governing sand extraction and trade makes it challenging to manage this resource sustainably. This lack of regulation has created a situation where the true environmental and social costs of sand mining are often hidden from view. As the demand for sand continues to rise, the environmental and social costs of unregulated extraction become more apparent. The degradation of ecosystems, loss of biodiversity, and disruption of communities are just some of the consequences of unchecked sand mining. This highlights the urgent need for comprehensive policies and international cooperation to address the sand mining crisis. In response to these challenges, some countries are exploring alternative materials and sustainable practices to reduce reliance on natural sand. For example, some are turning to recycled materials or manufactured sand, which is produced by crushing rocks to create sand-like particles. However, the transition to such alternatives requires significant investment in research, technology, and infrastructure. The global community must come together to explore these alternatives and ensure that the extraction of sand is done in a way that minimizes harm to the environment. Who's really profiting from Germany's sand rush? What are they not telling us about the impact on their economy?